Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome to our third series, or our third presentation in the series of Dallas 101. My name is Rudy. I am a librarian for the Dallas Public Library. If this is your first Dallas 101 with us, please go back and check our others. So far, we've been to Lakewood and Forest Green in the Hamilton Park, Lake Highlands area. Both of those series are fantastic. So please go back and check those out. They should be on our YouTube. If you're sitting there wondering, what is Dallas 101, even though you've found yourself here, let me give you the pitch. Dallas 101 is a series where we're investigating neighborhoods in the city of Dallas that you probably know, but maybe you don't know enough about. So if you're ever driving past an interesting landmark or a new neighborhood and you're asking yourself, what is that building? What is this? What's the history here? What all these questions? That's what we're here to investigate. So we're going to different Dallas neighborhoods to answer those questions for you and for ourselves to learn more about the history of the city we live in, and kind of figure out what's happened here, how has it developed over the years. And we're really excited today to be at the Oak Lawn Branch Library to learn more about the Oak Lawn neighborhood, which is very interesting, very exciting. Lots of awesome history here. We're really excited to get into this. We have some great interviews to go to and some awesome videos to check out. So thank you so much for being with us here this morning, or if you're watching the recording, thank you for joining us wherever you are in the future. To get us started, I'm going to invite the branch manager of the Oak Lawn branch, Gabby, to come chat with me a little bit about the library and the neighborhood. Gabby, you want to come on in?
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. Gabby, I guess I already said it, but you're branch manager here.
Yes.
How long have you been the manager here?
I've actually been manager for officially a couple months now, since the beginning of the year, but it's been over a year right now, basically. Yeah.
So you took over during pandemic, COVID.
Yeah, like trained under the fire, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been an interesting just kind of shift from last year to this year. So especially community-wise.
Yeah. How was it? Was it challenging to come in during a pandemic? I mean, I'd imagine so. And take over.
Yeah, it was, because again, it was just a big shift, especially when you go from one manager to another, just in general, right? Because the space is always different and the community here is very lively always.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that was tough. And then to have everything go from open to shut down. And, we kind of really did it in a span of a week to then be shut down for months. Yeah. And we were not a branch that opened up early on like the rest for curbside. So that I know was a very big disappointment for our community members, because many of them had to go to like Dallas West or Central or Lakewood. And again, people like to be based in their communities and not go out. And of course, I think many patrons also ran into the issue of traffic, because with COVID, there was still, construction going around. So that was an interesting, mix up on top of the fact.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Obviously, you're still surviving and thriving.
Right. Yeah. We're looking to, again, revamp as always. It's with COVID, we're opening our doors again. We're wanting to do the same things we did before, but do it better. Right. And that's how we see our freshman start.
Awesome. Yes. And in case you didn't know, the libraries are open. We've been open for a little while now, but if you're sitting there thinking, I wish the libraries are open, your wishes come true, they are open. You can come into the Oak Lawn branch and any of our branches today. Gabby, when you took over here, what was your first impression of the Oak Lawn neighborhood? Like, what really stuck out to you and it's kind of stayed with you all this time?
Oak Lawn, well, my mom actually used to work in the area, and she always used to say it was a very interesting area because you're close enough to central, like the centralized population of the city, downtown, right? That you get a mix of that, but it's still a different community because it's not downtown. But it's not suburban, it's not too much like that. So she told me, it's always very lively, especially with Cedar Springs, because you're right along, the strip. So it was very lively. We're also right next to Kroger, so you have a bunch of people coming in and out just to get their groceries, and then they come and get their books, or, it looks more trafficy sometimes than it is, but it's a very interesting community. It's always changing. That's, I think, the biggest thing to get, but you have a lot of staples in the community, like a lot of the bars have been here for a long time. My biggest thing when I was younger, S4, that's one of the more popular bars for the LGBT community in general. And they've always had the drag shows, which are always, the biggest hit in here, but it's very lively. And that's my biggest, that's the first thing I got whenever I visited the branch for the first time to come, I was like, where am I going to work exactly? Right. And it was here. And I was like, the street is busy. And so is a library, just because of that, So that was my first impression. It's a very lively neighborhood.
In your typical day-to-day, who are your average patrons that are coming in? Do you see mostly families, mostly adults, seniors?
We get a lot of seniors right through here. Before COVID, right now that we've opened our doors, not many people know that we've opened our doors, so the customers have changed just a little bit. But prior to, and even then, we still get families. A lot of them have smaller children, and we used to host toddler story time on a regular basis, so that used to hit the market. But we have a lot of seniors, we have a lot of new adults. We're developing in terms of housing, just down even here, Cedar Springs. So we're getting a lot of younger, newer adults, those who are joining the job force. It's very interesting. The one thing that we don't get just as much is teens, but we're hoping that will change at some point. But it is more families and, adults and seniors.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting us into your home this morning, Gabby.
You're very welcome. So.
Do you have any library plugs and shout outs you want to do?
I do. So summer reading is going on right now. So come and sign up and get your books, get your incentives. Another thing that we're about to roll out is the laptops and Wi-Fi bundle. Unfortunately, Oakland is not one where you can get the bundle because you have to check them out from specific branches. But any branch such as Oakland can put the hotspot, the bundle on hold for you to go pick up at any branch. And they're free to check out for any library card member. And you get them for 30 days. Again, you get a laptop and a Wi-Fi hotspot. So it's to take home, to do homework, to do business, to anything like that. So that's a fun thing that we're rolling out just soon incoming. Yeah.
That's wonderful. There are not enough chances in life where you can get a free laptop and
No,
Wi-Fi.
and with what's going on right now, we're trying to fill the gap in, especially for technology. So that's one of our big projects that we're finally able to make happen. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gabby.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you and everything you do here at the library and all the other staff who are working in the background. Yes, please come visit your local branch, whether it be Oak Lawn or wherever you're at. But now we're going to cut to a video from one of our 7th floor archivists at Central. Brandon put together a little video about the history of the library in the Oak Lawn area. And we're going to cut to that now, and then we'll be back with you in a minute.
Hello, I'm Brandon, and I'm a librarian and archivist at the Dallas History and Archives Division of the Dallas Public Library. Today we're going to talk about Oak Lawn and the history of Oak Lawn. Oak Lawn has a long history in Dallas as a neighborhood known for its groundbreaking diversity and vibrant growing community. There have been many buildings with the name Oak Lawn Branch Library going back to the early decades of the 20th century. In 1930, the Dallas Public Library established what would become the first Oak Lawn Branch Library in a rented facility at 3014 Reagan, with collection material that began as a collection of children's books at the nearby Sam Houston Elementary School. In 1950, the branch moved to 3521 Oak Lawn Avenue. By 1955, Oak Lawn was known as the Bohemia of Dallas, and as part of the reshuffling of branches and creation of new facilities by 1960, the Oak Lawn branch moved to a rented storefront on Lemon Avenue, though overcrowding remained a long-time issue for the branch. Finally, after 45-year rented facilities, a 1975 City of Dallas bond election approved funds for a city-owned structure to be constructed. The new Oak Lawn branch opened in 1981 when the Dallas Public Library was developing a computer catalog system. It was there that they chose their two newest branches to test out the system, both at Oak Lawn and Highland Hills. By 1996, however, a leaking roof and other issues factored into the city taking up an offer by Kroger food stores to help build a new Oak Lawn branch library in exchange for the existing property. The branch was temporarily relocated to a former furniture store, and by October of that year, a new 12,900 square foot single-story Oak Lawn branch library was opened. This is a building that still exists today to serve all those in the Oak Lawn neighborhood.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed Brandon's video. Obviously, it's very informative. I am now graced by the wonderful, the fantastic David Taffet. David works for the Dallas Voice. He's a wonderful person who's going to talk to us a little bit about the Voice. So, David, can you Can you tell us, for those who don't know, what is the Dallas Voice and what's the history of it?
Dallas Voice is the LGBT newspaper for North Texas. So we were founded in 1984, and a lot of the staff from the 80s is still around. Robert Moore and Don Ritz founded the paper, and actually it was an offshoot of the Houston Voice. So for the first year, the paper was even printed in Houston and shipped up here on a Greyhound bus.
Wow.
We hired our first writer, editor, Dennis Bircher, in 2005. He was with us until his death in 1985, and his death was in 2006. Tammy Nash started as a writer in 1988. She's the senior editor now. And I started in 1989, and I'm the senior staff writer now. And our publisher started in sales in like 1991 or 2. He's our publisher now.
That's wonderful. What can people expect if they say, "Oh, I want to check out the Dallas Voice"? And do they need to go to the website and look it up?
It's online, dallasvoice.com, or you can pick it up. Do you have it back in the library yet?
We may or may not. I'm not sure. I'll have to check.
If not, it's time for you to start getting it again. But we're in several hundred locations around the Metroplex.
What is your elevator speech for what the Dallas Voice offers and does for the city of Dallas, and maybe specifically, if possible, for the Oak Lawn area?
Well, if something happens in Oak Lawn, we'll report it. It doesn't have to be LGBT, but this is our home, so this is what we report on. We report on stories about the LGBT community, lots of profiles and news, good and bad. Some terrible news with the hate crimes against Black trans women over the last few years. But I think our being there is one of the things that kept Dallas police focused on solving the ones that happened in Dallas. And in fact, at first they were surprised we were working with them the first time we helped with a murder case. But we wanted it solved as much as they did. And that is one of the things that Dallas Voice does, is we work with the city on things that are important to the city. For the community in general, it surprised me how many people tell me, "Oh, I read the Dallas Voice all the time." The community in general just picks up the paper because I think we write stories that are just of general interest as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It sounds like you absolutely serve a need in the community, and obviously do good work because the community is receptive to it. So that's fantastic. To speak more specifically about the Oak Lawn neighborhood, how would you describe Oak Lawn to somebody? Maybe if somebody pulled in from out of town and they said, "Sir, where am I? What is this neighborhood? What can you tell me about it?" How would you present it to them?
Well, in about 1975, the gay community found Oak Lawn. It was a mess. It was run down. It was depressed. It was poverty stricken. And we fixed it. Now we're being priced out of it. The city's, right down the street here on Cedar Springs, the first businesses moved in about 1975. Union Jack, which was a men's clothing store, and the Bronx, which was a restaurant. Both of them were here until just a few years ago. The bars started moving in about 1978. One of the big bars was downtown, and it was where the art museum is now. So because the city took their space, they had to find a place, and this was where people were moving. Quite a few of our bars are ancient by now by gay bar standards. Sue Ellen's down the street is the oldest lesbian bar in the country. Yeah. But how else I would describe this neighborhood? It's eclectic. The street for shopping isn't what it used to be. Back in the 90s, Cedar Springs Road had the highest sales per square foot of any retail in the city of Dallas other than North Park or the Galleria. So it's been we took it and turned it into a vibrant neighborhood.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Obviously, you know a lot about the history of the area. Do you live in the area?
Yeah, I live right down the street.
How long have you lived here?
Not that long, about 7 or 8 years. I'm more an Oak Cliff person.
Yeah. In the past 8 years that you've been here, how would you say that you've seen and are seeing the area develop and change?
I can't stand the building that's going on. I live about 5 minutes from my office, but it can take me 20 minutes to get there because of traffic and construction.
Busier.
Yeah, lots and lots of construction going on. And lots of apartments being built, and as fast as they're built, they're occupied.
Well, thank you so much, David, for being with us this morning. We appreciate you and what you do. Please, if you haven't heard of it, if you don't know what it is, if you haven't read it, go check out the Dallas Voice. David, did you have any other shout outs or plugs you want to present to everyone before we move on?
Dallas Voice comes out every Friday morning. We appreciate all our readers.
Thank you so much. Sure. David. You're fantastic. Thank you, everyone who's watching. We're going to cut to another video from Brandon, who's going to present us with some more information about the neighborhood. Please check out the Dallas Voice. It is wonderful. We'll be right back with another guest. So we will see you soon.
The origins of Oakland go back quite far. The Cedar Springs community, which was founded around natural springs in the area where Oakland Park currently sits, became part of Dallas County in 1846, and it was located in the area where Turtle Creek Park currently sits. The Oakland Methodist Church was built by settlers in 1874 and was moved to Cedar Springs Road and Douglas Avenue in 1890, where it became the Oakland School. Oakland Avenue started as a rough gravel road that was used to access Exall Lake in Highland Park, but by 1903, the 7.5-acre Oakland Park attracted visitors and potential property buyers to the area. 2 years later, with the establishment of Holy Trinity University, an influx of Catholic single-family homes began in the area, and in 1909, Oakland Park was bought by the city of Dallas for $38,000. Cedar Springs was annexed by Dallas 20 years later. The park was renamed after Robert E. Lee in 1936, but in 2017, when the statue of Lee was removed, its name was returned to Oakland Park, which in 2019 was returned to the name Turtle Creek Park. The Oakland neighborhood has strong ties to the LGBTQ community in the Dallas area for decades. The short-lived Club Reno, or Reno Lounge, in the 1940s was known as the first gay bar in Texas, though by the late 1960s, the area known as the Crossroads, the intersection at Throckmorton Street and Cedar Springs Road, became the central area for the LGBTQ community in response to Dallas police interference at clubs and other establishments in the downtown area. Despite Dallas's reputation as one of the state's more conservative cities, its LGBTQ community was among the first in Texas to organize politically and socially. In 1972, the first gay pride parade in Texas was held in downtown, and on June 29, 1973, marchers went down Main Street holding signs protesting bias in hiring and housing at Dallas's second annual Gay Freedom Parade. Among the signage, "Gay rights are human rights. We demand the rights to live free of fear, and we demand an end to employment discrimination against gays." The march was held on the anniversary of the Stonewall riots, also known as the Stonewall Uprising or the Stonewall Rebellion, when members of the LGBTQ community at an otherwise little-known bar in Greenwich Village in Manhattan stood up to police during a raid. The word riot was attached to the incident since it marked the first open resistance by the LGBTQ community to police harassment and has inspired social justice awareness and action to this day. In Oakland, the opening of a flea market known as the Crossroads Market in 1980 provided a friendly space for that community to meet. In October 2018, Dallas became the first city to be awarded an LGBTQ communities marker from the Texas Historical Commission. The marker for the crossroads was placed in front of JR's Bar and Grill on Cedar Springs Road in Oakland. At the time of the marker's installation, Mark Doty, Dallas City Hall's chief historic preservation officer, was quoted as saying, "Dallas gets criticized, fairly perhaps, for not appreciating or recognizing its history. All of it, but this is an example where Dallas is actually one on the forefront of something for once."
All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you again to Brandon for working so hard putting together those videos. They're very informative and fantastic. I am now joined by a wonderful person, amazing human who lives and works in the area of Oak Lawn. This is Lee Darty. Lee, thank you so much for joining us and being with us here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Lee worked last night. He's going to work as soon as he leaves here. So obviously we are so appreciative of him joining us today. We know it's not always easy, to get all these meetings and everything in between. So we really appreciate it. I can't thank you enough. Lee, can you tell us about your business here in Oak Lawn? Maybe how long it's been here, what you offer to the community?
Sure. Alexandre's is what we celebrate its 17th year here on Cedar Springs. And it's kind of interesting. It's, I guess, sometimes hard for people to understand the importance of the bars down here because you don't have that in many communities or want that, kind of per se in many communities. But, throughout history and because of discrimination and oppression from the, state or people or, police or whatever, safe spaces were needed. And as, churches weren't, too welcoming and not many spaces were welcoming, this, community sprung up basically in solidarity with each other, and the meeting spaces and, basically our churches and our spaces and like that became bars because that's where we socialized. That's where we did our politics. That's where we organized and stuff like that. So that's why a lot of these bars have been here a long time, some upwards of 30 years of that, because once again, Oak Lawn and Cedar Springs specifically has been a safe space for the LGBT community. And what's nice about the kind of bars down here is they're all kind of different and they all offer something to different parts of the community, whether it's a lesbian focus like Sue Ellen's, patio sports bars. We do live music and classic and craft cocktails. That's kind of our niche. So there's kind of something for everyone down here on Cedar Springs with the shops and entertainment. So
you're approaching, said 17 years, approaching 2 decades in the biz. How has that experience been overall? I mean, obviously you said there's been a lot of challenges, but going on 17 years, how has the experience been? And maybe what was it like when you were first starting out 17 years ago?
there's never a dull moment in the bar business. There's never a dull moment on Cedar Springs, to be honest. It's a hustling, bustling area with a lot of density. A lot of people live down here. It's a very high populated area, and that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it Oak Lawn and neat. 17 years ago, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was the same. Just reference like some of the bars have been down here for 30 years, but with regards to like density and apartments and building construction, I mean, it's radically different than it was 17 years ago. And I mean, today's Equality Day, we're celebrating the Supreme Court case that struck down the bans on gay marriage and stuff. And I mean, you go back to the history and all that kind of stuff, and there's just so much stuff has changed even year to year due to basically self-gentrification that the LGBT community did down here, and then through somewhat the natural, unnatural gentrification that happens in upcoming neighborhoods as well. But like when I first opened the bar, across the street is 400 apartments now. It was a Tom Thumb, and where the bank was a closed gas station, and so like that. So you can look back and just realize how much has changed, but also you look at what hasn't changed. And I think that's the parallel there. I think it's kind of neat.
What is a typical night at Alexandre? If somebody's rolling in and they're like, what's a good bar to check out? Somebody says, oh, you have to go to Alexandre. What can they expect to find there?
The style is more of a kind of a New York style kind of shotgun bar. It's a smaller atmosphere. It's really nice, more of a lounge atmosphere. On the weekends, we have local musicians, most of them LGBT, and bands. And so we like to focus on that. And, we do seasonal cocktails and craft cocktails. And we, focus on offering a quality cocktail and quality atmosphere. And that's, kind of our niche at Alexandre's. Laid back, lounge, neighborhood bar, but really nice.
Yeah, please check it out if you haven't been before. I'm loving this sense of community. And obviously we find that in all the neighborhoods we visit, there's a sense of community, but especially here. And I was telling Lee right before we started going live that I was speaking to some folks down at the Rose Room. And I said, oh, I'm speaking to Lee Doherty in a few days. And they're like, oh, we know Lee. We know everybody knows everybody. And it's fantastic, this wonderful element of community. So my next question for you would be, how would you describe the community here in Oakland? And have you seen it change at all in all your time here?
It's hard to describe because, it's a diverse community. We have, of course, heavy LGBT population down here. And then we also, of course, have, allies and that kind of stuff. So, the more they construct down here, the more the people move in. And then once again, I think that's really the neat thing about Oakland, which includes Uptown and stuff like that, is just the amount of population that lives down here. It's really remarkable. It's one of the densest places in Texas, actually. And, some neighborhoods don't want that. Oakland thrives off of. And that's what makes it unique. That's what makes it fun. Makes it unaffordable at times. But, someone's working on that. But I think that's the character is, where it's come so far from the 70s and 80s. And I think, David talked about earlier, and through the generations where it used to be this area that was basically a red light district. It was always a counterculture district. In the 70s, it's like that, strip clubs and adult theaters and all kinds of stuff. And it morphed into this counterculture community that's still really tight. And, we protect each other. And you go back to the 80s during the AIDS crisis, where, the government failed, a health emergency. I know that's weird in people's minds right now. But the community sprung to action. There's movies made about it. The Dr. Pounder still is down here from that. But we have, our own health facilities. We had our own private school for LGBT. We have our own churches. Basically, we built a community. We built almost, would you say, a commune to survive that era. And that attitude and still exists to this day. And very recently, like 2015 and 16, when the crime wave hit down here, you saw a surge of activism and a surge of community that reclaimed the streets down here. So that's still the core. It was in the 80s, it was in the 90s, and it is today. I think that's what makes Cedar Springs and Oakland just the coolest place in Dallas. No offense to any other neighborhood, but it's the coolest place.
What would you say is one thing? Doesn't have to be one thing, but one thing that people should know about Oakland that they probably don't know already.
We do two things.
Go ahead.
One's history, and one something I mentioned earlier, that Oakland, the borders of Oakland is defined by a development district, PD 193, and it extends to Knox Street and Uptown and Victory Park, bordered by the freeways. So regardless if they call it Uptown, all of Uptown is in Oakland, but not all of Oakland is in Uptown. So a lot of people get that wrong, and Oakland's two words. A really cool history thing is this Cedar Springs, which still flows down about a mile that way at the Springs Apartment. This was Caddo territory of the indigenous people here. And the early colonizers started a city here called Cedar Springs. And it actually predates Dallas. And an election was held a number of years later on who would hold the county seat. And it was between whatever Oak Cliff was called then, Dallas and Cedar Springs. And Dallas won, and that's why we exist in Dallas County now. And if that election had gone differently, there's a very good chance today that we would actually be Cedar Springs County. So old history, but kind of cool, especially since the springs still flow just down the street.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Obviously, you're super busy, like I said, so we really appreciate it. Before we go, if you have any shout outs or plugs you want to make, but I also want to ask, if we come to your place, what's the first drink we have to try?
We are known throughout Dallas for old fashions. We still make them like they did in the 1860s by hand, using their techniques. And even the top craft bars in Dallas say ours tastes just a little bit better than everyone else's. So have an old fashioned there. We make them all day long.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Lee. You're wonderful. Please go check out Alexandre's. They're fantastic. Obviously, if you drink, get an old fashioned. Thank you so much for being with us, Lee. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. That is our show for today. We really appreciate you. Check out the Dallas Voice. The libraries are open for whatever library needs you may have. Happy Pride to everyone, and have a fantastic weekend. And we will see you next time.